Welcome to the Adult Basic Skills Professional Development video series. Throughout our productions, we are committed to excellence in adult education and professional development in basic skills instruction. The goal of this video series is to improve the effectiveness and quality of instruction through focused professional development.
But what we're trying to do is help new instructors who've never taught adults before learn how to do it better. That's the purpose of our whole project. And why this is so important to me is a bunch of years ago, I had a horrible time learning how to read. And I got interested in this, I guess, probably more than anything else because I grew up in a home where my dad didn't learn how to read, and here I was 13, 14 years old, and I'd already counted up the days so I could get out of school because I knew there wasn't any sense in me staying there. Might as well drop out of school. So I had somebody come along, gave me a little encouragement, sit down with me and doing some stuff just like you're doing right now. Sometimes they'd listen to me talk about things that are really important to me, and they'd write them down. And we'd learn how to read what I just talked about. And I learned how to read, started learning how to read. And so this is basically what I've been doing the last bunch of years, is trying to figure out how do you help people learn how to read better? Why do I have such a horrible time learning how to read? And sort of how to help other people learn how to do this easier and better. So what we're trying to do, if y'all don't mind, we'd sure appreciate it if you just let us sort of take a picture of what you're doing. You know, what is it you look, you know, what kind of activities are you going through? What's your instructor helping you learn how to do? That's what we don't want to do for a little bit, if it's okay. But maybe you got some questions for me. You got anything that I?
Well, let me ask you something.
Yes, sir.
How long did it take you to learn to read?
I'm still working on it.
Well, I understand. I mean, so you could read, you know, when you started back. A year, 6 months, or?
You really want me to tell you the truth?
Yeah,
I don't want
that's what we need to know.
years.
We got a lot of them, I hope, ahead of us.
Before I could read about anything I wanted to, it took me a long time. I finally found out, though, if I read a lot of easy stuff, I could make a lot faster progress and not try to work just trying to struggle through real hard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could find stories, or what was real nice is that people would listen to me talk about stuff that I really liked a lot, and they'd write off what I said, and then they'd type it off, and I learned how to read what I said. That's probably some of the easiest thing for me. It took me a lot longer to learn one thing, but when I really learned it, I mean, I knew it. I can just see, right, boy, y'all really learned some stuff. I mean, you really know some things now that you didn't know a couple weeks ago or a month or so ago. Is that right? I mean,
A whole lot.
Huh?
A whole lot.
A whole lot. Okay. And so that, you just keep on adding on a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's sort of how we learn how to do this. It isn't like you go over and turn on a light switch. It just takes a long time. But the thing about it is, this is what you're doing right now, some of the hardest things you'll ever do. If you really learn these words on these pages and so you instantly recognize them, it'll start picking up the speed. You know, you'll start learning how to do things a lot better. But until we really instantly know these words, because of those words on those first few pages, they're half or 2/3 of all the words you'll ever read the rest of your life. I don't care how hard the stuff is. If you just count off 100 words and you circle all the words that are on these first few pages, on any page that you want to read about anything, out of the newspaper or whatever, it's these words right here, more than half of them. So, and this is the hardest ones because you can't sound them out too well, do you? I mean, we were over here talking about it a while ago, trying to sound out some of these words. You just got to memorize them. But then after you memorize those and sort of can put a whole bunch together, then it seems to work a little better. And then you got a whole, maybe you can go 2 or 3 sentences without getting stuck on something. And then you just got to figure out, I'll give you an example. I went fishing down at the and you knew all those words. I went fishing down at the, and you didn't know what the last word is, you know, where can we go fishing? Where? River, creek,
Lakes?
lake,
Ponds?
pond, okay. But then you can sort of make sense, you can make some guesses. So then you just got to know, well, if the thing starts with an R, then it must be, I went fishing down at the river, okay? If I went fishing down at the, it's a P, you'd say pond. Oh, got it, hey, good. So see, if you got a bunch of words going that you sort of read without any, you don't have to stop and figure it out and struggle with it, but you can instantly recognize some of those, then you can, it sort of starts picking up and you go a lot better. So that's one of the things, is reading lots and lots and lots of easy stuff, but the big hurdle is what you're doing right now. It's the hardest part.
You could read your newspaper. That was about the top of the line, wasn't it?
Well, some of that's pretty hard stuff. But again, if you're really into baseball and you already know a lot about baseball, you can probably figure out pretty much how to read, because you already know a lot about it. So you're bringing a lot of information and knowledge about baseball to read that. But when you're reading things that you just never seen before, never heard of before, that makes it a little bit harder. Well, let me ask you all, what are some of the kinds of changes that are happening, you know, because you're working on this? What can you do now that you couldn't do a few months ago? What are some things you're recognizing?
I think myself, I can read some better. I don't know how much, but I can read some better. Do you think I can read better?
I think
When I
you've come
first
a
took-
long way. Even just in the little multiple skills books, you've
Yeah.
come along, you know, being able to understand a whole lot more of it.
I've been telling, what, 2 months? About that, something like that.
I know I'd read a lot better.
I know I've got a long ways to go, too.
And Barney, you've been writing. Your writing is clear.
But it doesn't take a year to make a year's progress for an adult, okay? Sometimes it's real hard to make that first bit of growth, but then after you go along a little ways, then you get a lot more things you can read. Then you can see, the more practice you get, the more minutes you read every week, the more progress you're going to make. And so, again, finding things that are easy, the easiest stuff you can find. I don't care how easy it is, the better. If you got little kids around, and find some books that you could practice reading to them. I find that's always kind of helpful. Practice 3 or 4 times, you know, and then find you some little neighborhood kid or one of your own, or maybe a couple of us have some grandkids. I'm not sure, but some of you guys are too young. But
He helps me with this. My grandchild does.
Mm.
I mean, he knows every word. He's just in the 2nd grade. He knows all this. But he does help me.
You know, to recognize the words is pretty good, but then take them away and try to write them, you know, that's my problem right there.
Oh, that's a lot harder. Right. Okay.
But you can say them on paper and kind of read it a little bit out of the books and stuff. You take everything away and then try to write that. That's what's bad.
Well, see, that's some of that. I don't get real technical with, but that's visual memory.
Yeah.
Spelling is really visual memory. How you see it, how well you can. It's sort of like going to a place and you're in this big crowd and you look across the room and you know that person, but you just can't remember what their name is.
Yeah.
So that's visual memory. But if somebody says their name, oh yeah, I know who that is. Yeah, you put it right with it. Well, that's kind of like reading
Every
something.
morning when I get up, my wife's got to tell me my own name, so that's the problem. I get up and drink the beer and he says, "Who am I?" She tells me.
Yeah, my wife's been trying to help me understand who I am for a long time. 35 years of it. The question was, what about sounding words out? That really works with some words, particularly the harder they get. But the words like on this page, there's a lot of words on this page that you can't sound out very well.
Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you don't know the word, and you get stuck, you don't know the word, and you try to sound it out, I mean, if you can't sound it out, you can't read it out. I mean,
Right.
you're just stuck.
Well, I've got a little technique that I use. It's called PNIR. P stands for punch. N stands for neighbor, I stands for in, and R stands for rib. Punch, neighbor, and rib. What's this?
You know, I've heard it read down there and say, I've heard a lot of somethings in a sentence. What do you mean reading a sentence and it's something and then skip that word and go on, you know?
Yeah, I used to call it Moses.
Moses,
Yeah,
okay.
somewhere in that. But see, there's where if you got a whole bunch of words in a sentence or 2 or 3 sentences that you, and then you can make a guess on what would probably make sense. And see, y'all got a lot of good ideas about what would probably make sense if you had a bunch of words that you could read along pretty well. And then when you come to one once in a while, now I want to give you a guess. If you only have trouble with one word out of say 20 to 30 or 40 words, that's about like it ought to. That's what we'd really like for you to practice in, okay? And most of us are practicing or wanting to practice in stuff where you read 3 or 4 words and you don't know the next one, read 3 or 4 more words and you don't know the next. That's probably a little hard. You probably make a lot more progress if you're reading in materials where there's only one once in a while that you don't know, like every 30 or 40 or 50 words. Then you run into one you're not sure. Then you can sort of make a guess on the basis of all these other words that up to that point.
Like in those little books where you answer the
Yeah.
question, you can get most of them.
But there again, it's what makes sense, and then what makes sense that starts with this letter. I think that's probably the hardest thing for me. I had a hard time being patient with myself because I always thought, yeah, I shoulda, I oughta, you know, that shoulda and oughta always gotten in my way. You know, if I just say, no, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing, I'm making some progress. I know 2 words this week I didn't know last week. I can read a little bit better here. Every once in a while I'll recognize something I never even tried to figure out before. And just keep adding on and going back and practicing. And that's how we make progress. And you can do it. I've been doing this now 32 years as a teacher. I've never had a student that hadn't made progress. Never had a student that didn't learn how to read better and better and better. If they just take their time and be patient with me.
You can take this group right here. There's some in there going to read better than the other ones. It's just going to take a little longer maybe for the other ones.
Right. For instance, it may take me 100 times to learn one new thing real well so that no matter where I see it, I can remember it. Okay? Now, I've had a student that it took us a couple 100 times looking at the same word in different ways over a month or so before before they wouldn't be confused with it. Now, let me tell you something. That guy was smarter than I'll ever be. He ran a whole crew. He was a foreman on a construction crew. But it took him 200 times to learn one new thing, practicing it, before he got to be as smart as a whip. Just so smart. But he had a hard time learning those words. But after it took us about 2.5 years till he learned about all the words that you got on these first 3 or 4 pages. And we'd read a lot of sentences and we'd do a lot of stuff. And then, boy, he just started taking off after that. It's just really neat to see. Came in one day and said, tell you, I read the whole menu to my crew when we went to a restaurant. That's a big deal.
Was for him, big step.
Yeah, that's right. And shoot, I was more proud than he was about the whole thing. He did great. It's just thing about it is you got to keep realizing learning how to read is a tough thing. For some of us, it's a whole lot harder than others, but it still doesn't mean that we don't have a lot of smarts up here because you can think through things and understand things. And well, I really admire you, man. Really do. Got good teachers. You'll make it. Just you got to be patient with yourself. That's what's important.
And work hard.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen overnight. Now you got to think. I hope I hadn't discouraged anybody by saying it took me a while. Okay, you just need to be patient. I used to really have a hard time with God. I thought, God, you messed me up like this, and then somewhere or another somebody was reading to me and says, Moses was he had a hard time. Moses was a stutterer. You know, he stammered and so forth, and he was arguing with God because God asked him to do something. So I can't go do that because I stutter. And in essence, God said, you know, who made the blind blind and the deaf deaf? And I sort of took that I'll never forget when I really sort of put that in my head. I said, you know, God allowed me to be this way. I don't mean to push that my religious perspective on you, but from my point of view, God allowed me to be this way. And it's all right. I'm probably a better person because I've had trouble with learning how to read well. And so I finally got to the point I wasn't too resentful. And realized, sure enough, there's some things I could do that some of these other folks have picked up things real quick, you know, with reading. They looked right past things that I found out were really important.